Hello, my friends. Welcome to my spiritual sanctuary. My name is Sandra. Welcome in, welcome in. Come on in, come on in. We'll be talking about spiritual topics this evening. Hermetic science, which if you were here last week, I want to thank you so much for coming back. And if you're new, then we're glad to have you. So this is Spiritually Speaking with Sandra, and it is all things spiritual. And tonight we're going to be talking about Hermetic principles. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the principles with Hermetic science because they've been really profound in my life. And I know that right now the planet is just really thirsting for spirituality as we're going through all the election and now the aftermath of the election. And then in December, we are going to be having the total solar eclipse on December 14th. That is going to usher us into another 20-year cycle through the age of Aquarius. So things are shifting and changing. People are looking for answers within themselves, and if they're looking outside themselves, those answers aren't going to be found. So there are some spiritual principles which I have found very helpful in my evolution, and I just wanted to share those with you this evening. And if you're interested in knowing more, then definitely go ahead and email me at myspiritualsanctuaryinfo@gmail.com, and I would be happy to give you a spiritual guidance session, and we can figure out how we can work together from that point forward. Okay. Well, the thing is about these spiritual principles, the Hermetic science I'm talking about this evening, is they have originated in ancient Egypt, and they, are mostly the foundation for astrology as we know it today. And the master key work that I'm doing on Monday, if you have watched that, then you'll know that that's all about the power of our thinking and how we can transform our lives through alchemy. And that's what Hermes really wanted to drive home with us, is that there are some spiritual principles that have been handed down through the centuries. And a lot of this information is secret knowledge. It comes from the sacred mysteries of ancient Egypt. So it's not readily shared in the general public, just like a lot of other texts. And people have to seek this information out. It's not going to be readily available as a lot of other religious traditions. This is not about religion. This is about spiritual principles that people are looking at from a universal standpoint of the divine one source, and what are the truths? What is truths when it comes to the divine universe, and what have our ancestors and other master teachers handed down to us over the centuries that still holds true today, that never changes. And so I thought I would talk a little bit, and it comes from this book called The Kabbalion, and it's all about Hermetic philosophy, and that is something that I have studied extensively. So the thing that I've learned about Hermes Trismegistus is his other name that you may have heard him by is Thoth, Thoth. He is, a master great teacher that came from the ancient Egyptian schools of thought. And at that time, the people looked to him for all of his wisdom, because it was, like I said, he was the thought-provoking thinker back then, and really put into place what we now know as astrology and alchemy, creating lead into gold. So when we're looking at the way our world is today, and, there's a lot of superficial values out there that people have kind of shied away from the ancient traditions and those spiritual principles that never change. So a lot of times it helps when you're in a time of stress or you're having issues with, people, places, or things, that you can learn these different principles and bring them in when you need them. So these principles are quite helpful, and there's actually 7 of them in the Hermetic philosophy. And so let me go ahead and let you know what those are, and then I'll go through each one. So the 7 Hermetic principles, those are the principles of truth. And he who knows these understandingly possess the magic key, before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open. The 7 Hermetic principles upon which the entire Hermetic philosophy is based on is as follows. Number 1, the principle of mentalism, the principle of thought. And I'll go more into each one of these, but let me just give you the 7 right now. Principle number 2 is the principle of correspondence. Principle number 3 is the principle of vibration. Principle number 4 is the principle of polarity. And principle number 5 is the principle of rhythm. Principle number 6 is the principle of cause and effect. And then principle number 7 is the principle of gender. So the principle of mentalism means that all is in the mind, all comes from thought. And it embodies the truth that the all reality underlying all outward manifestations and appearances, which we know under the terms of our material universe, our matter, our 3D world existence, is in short apparent because of our material our 5 senses. And that all is spirit, which in itself is unknowable, undefinable, but which may be considered and thought of as an universal, infinite living mind, because we live through spirit. So, and it also explains that all phenomenal world or universe is simply a mental creation of all, subject to the laws of created things, and that the universe as a whole and in its parts or units has its existence in the mind of all, and that this principle is all about thought. So in order for us to begin anything in life, we have thought about it, okay? Everything comes from thought. So the principle of mentalism is thoughts create things in our life. So what I would tell you is that it's important to recognize what thoughts are you thinking on a daily basis, and are they serving you for the higher good and the higher good of all. A lot of times when we are stressed or we're having troubles in our lives, troubles with people, places, or things in relationships, our thoughts don't always go to the place that would create the proper outcome or the effect that we desire. So when we are in these situations, or let's just say I decide, because I had a thought, that I wanted to create let's just say, for an example, a chair, okay? Because all great inventions came from thought, right? They all came from mentalism. And the mind is what differentiates between, being human and being animalistic, I should say, okay? So if you have a thought that you want to create a chair, then what happens is that thought gives you a feeling, right? It gives you a feeling. And if that feeling is strong enough, then it will create action. You'll begin to figure out how to make it and create a chair, right? Once we create action, then, of course, we see results. So when you are wondering why things are showing up as an effect in your life, the spiritual way to look at it is to go back to where the thought came from and why it's showing up. So if you want to create a thriving career and you want to create money in your life, you want to create a good relationship, you want to create abundant health, then your thoughts need to coincide with that certain vibration that would create that effect, let's say. So the principle of mentalism is our thoughts on a daily basis and how they are serving us as we're moving forward. And really, your inner world, your thoughts, are what you have control over, as opposed to anything outside of yourself, which would be an effect. So if you're finding you're having trouble with life on the outside of things, then I would suggest this week to put this into practice of what are you thinking about on the inside. And it might be helpful if you even kept a journal for this next week forward that would get you in touch with the thoughts that you're thinking on a regular basis. So when we're aware of what we're thinking, then we can either continue to think those thoughts or we can change those thoughts for the desired outcomes that we're trying to reach. Okay? So that's one of the spiritual principles of Hermetic philosophy. And it's really a big one because it is the master key of all creation and creating alchemy in your life. So what I'm going to do is leave you with that this week, that one principle, and then what we'll do is each week we'll go through a different principle and we'll give you the week to practice, put everything into practice for that one principle to make it easy for you. So I would suggest that you write down the principle of mentalism. The all is mind, and the universe is mental. And intelligently apply that. And this principle explains the true nature of energy, power, and matter, and why and how all these are subordinate to the mastery of the mind. One of the old Hermetic masters wrote long ages ago, "He who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery." And these words are as true today as at the time they were first written in ancient Egypt. So without the master key, mastery is impossible, and the student knocks in vain at the many doors of the temple. So I'm going to just leave you with those thoughts this evening. And I will, I hope that you take this little principle seriously and, really start to build an awareness of what your thoughts are thinking, what thoughts they are. And don't be afraid to detach from the thoughts that are not serving you. Once you recognize what those are, you can detach from those thoughts that are no longer serving you. And when they come out unexpectedly, you can say, cancel, clear. And that'll erase it. And then you can say what you really want in the present tense, in the positive tense, what you definitely want to create in life. And I'm right with you. I'm putting all of this into practice myself. So, you're not alone with this. It's just, we go through cycles in life where, sometimes we need this more than other times. And sometimes we can be really good for a while and then, fall off the wagon like with everything else. So, it's not perfection, it's progress. And I think if you start to keep a journal of your thoughts on a daily basis like I do, then you'll start to see a pattern of what you're thinking on a daily basis. And when you start to recognize that, you can see what's showing up in your world, and you'll begin to see that there's a direct correlation between the two. So you change your thinking, you change your outcomes, change your feelings as a result of the thoughts, then the feelings change the action. Very simple, but not easy. Okay, well, I just wanted to lay that first principle out to you this evening on Spiritually Speaking, and I will see you next week where we'll be talking about Principle 2, and that will be the principle of correspondence. So come back next week and we'll take this up again, okay? Have a wonderful week ahead, my friends, and good luck on your thoughts and thinking this week, okay? Namaste.